Ahoy there folks! For this week's video I thought I'd do something a little bit different, try and break the trend from all the different pirate games that we seem to be playing, and do something a bit more unscripted and a bit more relevant to recent situations. Rather than a game that's been out for a while, something that's a little bit more up and coming. So today I'm going to be talking about Wildtails, a pirate legacy. A pirate-themed legacy card game by ButtonShy Games for 1 to 2 players. And no, I'm not going to be doing this one in costume because it is way too hot out here for this. Whew, now that I'm out of that, first of all, let me introduce you to ButtonShy Games. Now, these guys make handmade card games using only 18 cards. They are tiny little experiences that fit in a little wallet about the size of a train pass holder or an Oyster card holder if you're in London. Ultimately, we have a couple of these already with Skulls of Sedlec and Sprawlopolis, which I'll cover in future videos. So what makes Wildtails so special? Well, first of all, it's a pirate-themed game, and if you watched my review of Loot, you'll know how that works for me. Secondly, it's a legacy game with only 18 cards. Yes, really, a legacy game with 18 cards. For those who don't know, legacy games are a unique type of board game that's been springing up a lot recently. There's been some famous ones in the past like Pandemic Legacy or Risk Legacy, and probably dozens of others that I couldn't mention if I even tried to. A legacy game is essentially a game that evolves as you play it. Depending on how you do in certain scenarios, you may be modifying your board with a permanent marker, adding or removing cards and rules from the game, basically defacing everything with stickers and permanent markers to make the game completely yours and unique. It kind of gives this feeling of the game evolving with you, growing around you, and becoming something truly unique. But again, to be able to do this kind of experience using only 18 cards? Well, when a friend on the board gaming subreddit introduced me to the concept, back when it was still called Legacy Tales of Barataria, I was dubious, to say the least. How could this be possible? How could you get such a complex experience, an evolving and ever-changing experience, out of only 18 cards? It felt kind of like a treasure map found rolled up in a bottle that had just been passing by. This couldn't be possible, could it? Well, I went onto the ButtonShy Discord, I spoke to the guys there, and I've managed to print myself a prototype beta testing version, and that's what we're here to talk about. The basic premise of Wildtails is that you're trying to establish your own pirate empire in the American South, in a semi-fictional alternative history populated primarily by anamorphic animals. As you progress through the 10-chapter campaign, you will unlock new abilities for your pirates, as well as eventually new pirates and even a fleet for them. New rules will be added to cards as you progress as well, which will add new levels of complications. Ultimately, every decision that you make throughout Wildtails does change the path that you're taking and which outcome you'll end up at. So how does it actually play? Basic gameplay involves you attempting to complete 2 objectives before driving off that scenario's threat, which could be raiders or even the bloody British Navy. You do this by taking actions each turn to complete scenes, attack the threat to keep it under control, or using character abilities. And honestly, the way that this all works is a little bit ingenious. Besides the player characters, the Empire card, and the Pirate's Log reference card, every single card in the game is having a sort of identity crisis. It's a scene on one side of it, and then either an objective or a threat on the other. Then they also have 4 different resources around the edges. One of the most common actions you'll do on your turn is to interact with the current scene card, completing one of the 4 tasks shown on it, such as pillaging the governor's manor, hiring crew, or robbing graves? One of these tasks is usually free, that's the one at the top. 2 usually have a minor cost attached to them, the ones shown in red, and the 4th one usually involves a skill check to complete, that's the one at the bottom in blue. When you complete a task on a scene, you find which of the 4 edges show the resources that you've just claimed, and then slip that onto your card. Cool, right? I love how they've managed to get so much done with so few cards. In future turns, these resources can be used to pay for other tasks, or for interacting with various special abilities. To make a skill check, you first reference the relevant ability on your character sheet, then reveal the scene below the current scene for its modifier. You then add this modifier to your character's ability, and if it matches or exceeds the requirement, success, huzzah, pop open the rum, you're awesome. Special note should be made, however, that if the two scenes' curse symbols match, it is an automatic failure, as it is in this case. This adds a little tension even on easier checks, which personally I really like, even if it has dashed some of my best laid plans against the rocks of inadequacy. If you fail a skill check, the scene is discarded. If you succeed, you'd earn the rewards. At the end of each of your turns, you can also store cards under your Empire card for the other character to access in future turns using their smuggle action. The second most common action is completing objectives. To complete a scenario, you must complete both objectives fully, then chase away the threat. To complete an objective, you must pay resources equal to its completion criteria. The first time this happens, like so, you will take the objective and slide it to the bottom of your character, making sure that the first symbols line up. These then provide additional rewards and abilities the further along the track they are, denoted by how well they line up. Again, how clever is this? This card was a scene, it's 4 different resources, and now it's an objective tracker giving you additional stuff each turn. You'll ultimately need to complete each objective 4 times in order to get all of the symbols to line up. Once this final symbol is shown and aligned up with your card, you can finally chase away the threat and complete the scenario. That, in a nutshell, is the main gameplay loop here, making decisions, gathering resources, and completing the 2 objectives before beating off the threat. But there are a number of rubs and twists that really spice things up, like a bar fight in Tortuga. Firstly, the threats don't sit by idly just watching you play the game waiting to be taken out. They are called threats after all. Once the scene deck depletes the first time, you'll reshuffle the discard pile to make a new scene deck, then the threat will capture one of the scenes, making the scene deck that little bit smaller, making the threat tougher to beat, and ultimately making the game that little bit more challenging. Then the threat advances, using the pirate log card as reference. Now the curse symbols on the scene cards suddenly gain a new use. At the start of a turn, if the scene's curse marker matches any of the curse markers lined up on the pirate's log, then the relevant threat effect triggers. This can involve capturing more scenes, losing resource cards, and more. These effects can really throw a cutlass in the works. The more resource cards you hold or are captured by the threat, the faster the rounds go and the quicker it all ramps up. The trick is to use your resources quickly and efficiently and try to effectively manage the threat by attacking it. Because if you ever run out of scene cards, or if the threat captures 5 cards, or if you reach the end of round 7, that's it. Game over, you fail.
Good day, sir!
Attacking the threat is the third action you can do on your turn and involves making a skill check against the threat, increasing these requirements based on the number of cards the threat currently has captured, in this case, a +1. Whether you fail or pass this skill check, the current scene is discarded. If you do manage to succeed, however, you'll smack the threat upside the face or some other equally heroic action, and all the captured scenes are discarded. The threat remains and doesn't decrease in any other way, but you'll have all those important scene cards back in the game for future rounds, and the threat's a little bit easier to beat in future. Some cooperative board games absolutely suck to lose at. I'm personally quite a big fan of the Dark Souls board game, but a game that takes 30 minutes to set up, 3 hours to play, and then you lose just isn't much fun at all, and it's a really hard sell to say to people, hey, should we go again? Not so with Wildtails. This game takes seconds to set up, and each scenario takes about 10 to 15 minutes, give or take a little bit of action paralysis. Ultimately though, the campaign eventually comes to an end. You tally up your score, you find out how you did, and that's your legacy game over. The board has been doodled all over, the stickers all over the shop, cards have been destroyed, and that's pretty much it. If you want to go again, off you go to the shops to buy yourself a second copy. Again, not so with Wildtails. Once the campaign's over, you can use your modified and upgraded cards in a post-campaign one-shot. And honestly, this feels really cool. You randomise one threat to go up against and 2 objectives to complete. And whilst at first I was a little bit worried that having random threats and objectives thrown together into a mix that wasn't really put there by the designers for the campaign purposes might feel a little bit unbalanced, having played a few matches, there's definitely some matchups that are a little bit easier and some that are a little bit tougher, but none of them so far have felt unfair, whilst none of them have felt like clear sailing either. And remember, this is a ButtonShy game. These games typically retail for around $12 with a cheaper print and play option available if that's what you're into. Ultimately, I do expect Wildtails to be a little bit more expensive than that on account of it having more assets in it, like the sticker sheet, etc. But even then, it's still a really cheap investment. It's nice and easy to go through the campaign and just go, okay, well, I'll just pick it up again and off we go with a brand new deck. If you've got the print and play, you just print it out again and go for a second time. And for a game that costs so little and takes up basically 1 foot square of table space, it's the kind of thing I wouldn't mind getting several copies of and just tossing in my bag to take with me with friends and that whenever I'm going to the pub or whatever. It's that simple of an experience. Now, of course, I'm using a prototype print and play here supplied by ButtonShy. The finished game will have proper, fully cut shaped cards, and the artwork won't be black and white grayscale, but full colour, as shown in the rulebook. But honestly, it already looks gorgeous, and I can't wait to see this in colour. The only thing for me better than pirates is anamorphic animal pirates, things that look like a Saturday morning cartoon from the 90s. That is very much my aesthetic, and this game has that in absolute spades. The characters are really quite characterful, for want of a better term, and the artwork used on the scene cards is evocative and really quite creative. Honestly, if I have any complaint against this game so far, it's a really minor one, and that it's when you first start playing, the rules are a little bit confusing. Because every card has multiple different sides to it. It's a scene, it's a threat, it's an objective, it's 4 different types of resources. That can be a little bit confusing to get your head around at first, and the first game or 2 that I played, I was referencing the rules book an awful lot, just making sure that I was getting everything right. There's a lot of little fiddly detail, it feels, at first, but it does come together quite quickly. So once you're over that initial hurdle, things really smooth out into what I've honestly really enjoyed as a gaming experience. My journey with Wildtails started with me being dubious that you could make an effective pirate-themed legacy game out of only 18 cards, but after a week or so of playing this now, I have to say I am genuinely shocked and impressed. The guys at ButtonShy Games have managed it yet again, making a delightfully fun game out of ridiculously few components, and I feel that kind of has to be celebrated. It's astonishing. It's ludicrously quick to play, ludicrously quick to set up, and as I said, it's about 1 foot square of table space, meaning this is the kind of thing you can chuck in a bag and play it whenever and wherever you fancy. When Wildtails fully launches, to me this will be a no-brainer to pick up for our crew. It's small and compact, it's light, which means it's really easy for me to ship out here. Even though I've got a print and play copy that's already functional, absolutely I will be shelling out for the actual game when it launches. I can't wait to see that full colour artwork, I can't wait to properly see how the campaign has changed. If the game is this good right now, I genuinely am excited to see what it becomes at final launch. If, like me, you enjoy pirate-themed games or tense resource management experiences in a surprisingly small package and footprint, then Wildtails very much may be the game for you. Keep an eye on this channel because I will let everyone know when this one goes live and when it's available to purchase. And if you do get it and try it out, come back and let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section here. I'd love to know how you get on with it. Perhaps you've already played some of the other ButtonShy games. As I said, we've played Sprawlopolis and Skulls of Sedlec. I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions on those and any others you may have played. Genuinely, I'm out for recommendations on this one. That said, if you do want to support this channel and keep content like this coming, you can head across to patreon.com/CaptainBenzie and pledge your support there. Every pledge and every dollar really does mean the world to me and helps keep this channel and content like this coming. Otherwise, folks, that's about it for today. Keep subscribed to the channel, and I look forward to seeing you all next time. Happy sailing, and see you all in the future.